morning, everybody. It's pretty early. I'm going to do a coffee talk with Vincent Byfield this morning as well. 6:30 starts the UNSC, so I want to watch that. It could be anywhere from an hour and a half to 4 hours tops, usually 3.5 hours. It's annual, and it's big because we put an appeal against Canada in there and an appeal to the way the UNSC operates. I'm going to watch it through and through today. I'm going to do this talk with Vincent Byfield on Alberta politics and the 8 candidates in provincial constitutionalism. More than that, I want to go through Roe versus Wade and what a lot of people are missing, especially here in Canada, who's a dying country in a larger majority than the United States of America, who also is dying too, folks. They're dying. And what does that mean? Well, here's the problem, folks. There's a minimum amount of children that Canadians must have year after year. If they don't have that minimum number, they have to do immigration to get those numbers up. And the problem is, if people aren't having babies because they can't afford it, and often people are participating in abortion because they can't afford children, there's something wrong with your system. Roe versus
In
Wade.
800 meters, continue onto 100th Avenue Northwest.
Sorry, my bad. I had to take that off. So the problem is, if your country can't afford children and people are participating in abortion because they can't afford a child, not because it was an accidental pregnancy, or maybe it was, or the person or the couple are afraid that they can't afford a child and your population's dying, immigration isn't going to fix that. And in fact, folks, your population doesn't grow as your debt grows. It means every generation and current living citizenry continues to absorb more and more debt, which means more and more taxes, which means worse and worse economy. If you ever want to look at a dying economy over population, go look at Japan. Go look at Japan. Now, Roe versus Wade, 1973. As an economist, my job, my career, folks, it's pretty simple. There was a baby boom after World War II. There was a 7-year period where a lot of people didn't have children because the men were away fighting and the women were working to bring home the bread and butter for the family. That's what happened. No sex, not a lot of it during World War II. 7-year period. What happens? All the men come home. Well, a lot of sex happening. A lot of sex. What happens? A huge baby boom. Now, it's reflected. People say, oh, Roe versus Wade, abortion has nothing to do with the diminishing reality of children and people having them. The reality is, folks, the baby boom of World War II goes down because people level off. Everybody had a baby within 9 to 10 months of World War II. That's what happened, folks. And after that, you do watch it slow decline. And then Roe versus Wade comes out when you've leveled off from the baby boom, and you watch birth rates drastically decline. Now, people can say, hey, well, people don't have babies, people don't want this, that. It all has to do with affordability. You can watch inflation, you can watch the cost of living increase, inflation increase. After Richard Nixon had to sign off the gold standard, you watch runaway inflation, credit take over, and large globalization. That's what happened for all countries of the world. Everybody went on the American dollar system that runs on inflation, which is money printing. And you know what, folks? You watch abortions increase at a tremendous rate, to the point that Canada, much, much larger than USA, is dying. We average about 1.4 7 children. You need 2.2 children to grow, and we can't do that anymore. The new generation not even having any kids. I don't know what the latest statistics are, but it's not good. It's really not good. Besides Alberta, there was a growing population, a young population, but I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. I'll be interested in the coming statistics next July, Canada's statistics on it. But it's not good, folks. Canada dying tremendously much larger than the United States, and inversely, you see the cost of living, housing costs astronomical compared to USA. Now, percentage increases might be a little higher in USA for inflation, but the bottom line costs weren't there, folks. There's something else I want to talk about in this video, but I'm almost at destination. I'm going to have to call her a day here pretty quick. Freedom fighters, all this convoy, people in jail, and a lot of religious folks, and traditionally people who don't really have much invested in the criminal justice system. Well, for a lot of us folks, at least in Canada, almost half the population, I mean, it's somewhere around 42%, has been fingerprinted, processed, charged in criminal court system. Now, there's been, how many convictions? They say 62%, but there's a lot of people, especially in divorce. That's probably the leading cause, because there's 2 reasons to go to jail. 1 is over a woman, and 2 is drugs. Sorry. Anyone who's been to jail, any criminal will tell you this. You go to jail, you find out. I had the unfortunate reality of prison several times in my life. Federally indicted multiple times. Hate to say it to these freedom fighters, but there's a lot of us who've been fighting for more than 2 decades, and we've seen the inside of jail on the same principles of the freedom fighters. The idea that you have freedom of expression, freedom of association, done it all in labor myself. And you know what? Nothing but losses. I even live with sanctions till today, right now. Never to be free from it. Never. And is it right? No, it's wrong. But what can I do about it except for leave Canada and start over in the United States where those sanctions don't exist? But I can tell you, as anybody who's ever been through the court system, you have no rights when you take release conditions to get out of jail upon initial charges. Contrary to popular belief, you have none. You get handed a 2-year set of rules you have to live by, and if you can't, you go back to jail until they decide what they're going to do with you. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And anyone who thinks that, we used to have freedom of expression or the right to freedom of speech and protest, hate to tell you, folks, we don't. People have lost their lives in Canada, been beaten, had the cops kick the living shit out of people. And a lot of folks in this freedom convoy, historically, decades ago, supported all that. You thought that was a good idea because it was labor. Then you wonder when the labor doesn't come forward to support you. Well, historically, unfortunately, you didn't support them in all their fights, and that's the sad reality of all institutionalized Canadians. There is no left or right. There's only up and down. The government up here over all of you down here. And we've all allowed the government to grow and bolster itself to up here. And unfortunately, Canada has always existed forever and a day in violence. That the only time Canadians ever win anything, the average Joe Jane citizens, is through absolute violence. If you don't do violence, you don't win nothing. And with that comes a whole bunch of people prosecuted, a whole bunch of people in jail, sometimes for absolutely nothing or very, very little. And there's not much you can do about it. That's how Canada works. It's wrong. It's gross. Unfortunately, it's been forever and a day since the founding Magna Carta, because the government, or the crown, which we have in Canada, constitutional monarchy. I went around Canada expressing this, training, teaching. I've put in countless hours and invested much time, heavy resources, much of my own personal money. And people still don't get it. They don't want to hear it. And, you just keep trying, but you don't die on other people's hills because they don't understand it. Precedent law. The common law to all is precedent law. What have judges ruled before? If you ever want to know where you sit criminally or what's going to happen to you with the actions you do, there is precedent law that you can pull and find out if you're going to be found guilty or innocent. Sorry, that's how it is. I didn't make this system. That's how it is. And people make it up. They lie to you every day. I've watched radicals and lunatics making up narratives of law. Well, this is what I think, and I'm going to go out there and enforce it, and it's going to work for me. Well, you find out real fast it's not true. It doesn't work for you, and you will be liquidated by the crown. They will liquidate all your wealth, apply their justice upon you. Right or wrong, folks, it's not what I agree with. It's what I've learned to accept, like everybody else who has a brain. You learn the system, you work within the system to make change, and there are ways to do that. A lot of what people are doing is not effective in making change. I love that it wakes people up to realities, but at the same time, what effective change are you going to see? The answer is none. And these people, I wrote a post about it. Anyone who wants to know, you can ignore it. But for all of us who've been through the system, have been put in jail, and I can tell for myself I was not guilty, and I was rendered a verdict not guilty. And there were all kinds of breaches I went through, and I went through it. Oh, I'm getting looked at. I have to go. I booked an appointment. It's after 6. Bye all.